Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to introduce our experience of an iPOS implementation which we put in quite recently at Liberum Capital. I have a brief presentation for you in terms of a case study where I intend to just go through a little bit about who we are, the problems we faced in advance of an iPOS implementation, what our requirements were, why iPOS, and then what the outcome has been to date, given our implementation only went live late April of this year. So Liberum Capital, there's not much information on there, given that it's a picture of our building, but Liberum Capital are a financial services firm, 150 people. We set up in 2007, so we're only 4 years old. We've gone from zero revenue and zero costs in 2007 to, as I say, 150 people and a cost base now of about 30 million. Fortunately, our revenues are greater than that, but I won't go into the detail on that. And within that 30 million, we probably have 15 million of non-staff costs, which we have applied a requisition, or we're in the process of applying a requisition ordering process over. So it's across every cost that we have within the organisation. As I say, we're a very new firm operating in the regulated space by offering sales, trading and market making in equities and fixed income products, and then also offering a corporate broking service to a core client base of about 40 clients, where we do mergers and acquisitions and raise monies on the financial markets in London. And one of the aspects of that is that we have a fair amount of costs outside of our own spend, which we look to recover off of our clients on a project-by-project basis, which iPOS and also Sun has actually helped us in terms of recoverability and tracking of that spend. So the problems we face, and probably like all actual and potential users of iPOS or any financial system, our problems are probably the same as you've experienced and you've tried to overcome in your implementations and in your use of a system such as iPOS. A little bit before we go into the actual problems we faced, Sun for us is a relatively new general ledger system as well. Not surprisingly, given the business only started in 2007, we started the business in Sage and went for a Sun implementation at the back end of 2009 and went live on Sun in January 2010. That was a very rushed, hasty implementation of the Sun product. It wasn't one that was well documented and well received within the organisation. So on my joining the firm in September 2010, we did a complete re-implementation of Sun and a complete rollout of that general ledger package across all of our entities. We operate in both London and New York. Fortunately, we only have 2 entities, but we did a complete rollout of Sun across the organisation in the back end of 2010 with a live date of January 2011. And it was clear in that rollout that iPOS we had identified as a second phase of system enhancement at that point. But clearly the Sun implementation was the key one to begin with. So the problems we faced, like all small firms who have grown quite rapidly, was that we had now started to experience delay in the payments of our suppliers. We were losing goodwill with our suppliers. We had little or no record keeping, and because it was a very manual process with a lot of paper chasing, there was an awful lot of lost invoices. And one of our key problems I refer to is that we weren't able to recover expenses off our clients in an appropriate way, because we had so little tracking. The absence of little or no pre-approval as well was a concern. So, individuals out there in the organisation were committing the company to spend with little approval. And I suppose with any manual process, there was a lot of use of spreadsheets, which weren't centrally coordinated or controlled. So different teams had different spreadsheets, making requisitions and trying to implement, trying to run a requisition order process, but it had no connectivity into the general ledger. Yes, we operate in 3 offices in the UK and 2 offices in New York. The business historically has only really reported on a company basis rather than departmental or divisional basis, which is in the next phase for 2012. So at the moment we don't actually do departmental reporting. And there was a paper chase. So finance were clearly central to ensuring that the general ledger was posted to appropriately, but we were constantly chasing paper around the organisation. And that's one of the outcomes of having a manual process in place. And I suppose more importantly, there was a lack of accounting. We couldn't track where we had committed the firm to spend. We had little accruals or couldn't identify the accruals that were required, and hence the accounting and cost control was simply not there. Okay? I'm sure some of those are familiar to all of you in advance of that. So what were our requirements? Clearly, integration to Sun was key. Clearly, I wouldn't be standing up here if we didn't achieve these things, but integration to Sun was key. Our SunSystems partner is Sapphire, and so we knew the iPOS product in advance in terms of its integration into Sun, and that has been achieved very, very easily, very straightforwardly. Control was key. So the absence of that, bringing the coordination of requisitioning and ordering into the finance team and then rolling that out across the department heads created control where there simply wasn't any. Authorization was a new thing. People were never being challenged in terms of committing the firm to spend. There simply was little challenge or pre-approval, and that has now changed. And that has been a big challenge for us in terms of challenging individuals' ability to order on behalf of the firm, even at senior level. Audit, again, in our year-end and half-yearly reporting where we had auditors involved, there was little record keeping and audit trail to track through our cost base through to underlying invoices, and an absence of approval was also a concern for our auditors. And I'm pleased to say clearly all of that has now been achieved, and clearly this year end is going to be the first one where we will hopefully have a clean audit. Not that we had an unclean audit, but it was a challenge at audit. And then reporting, more importantly as well. So, through iPOS and through the Q&A tool above Sun, our reporting functionality has just improved markedly in terms of tracking what requisitions are in, what are outstanding, our order process, and through to accruals and ultimately through to expenses in the system. And one that it's not on there is also that we needed a product that was going to grow with us. As I say, we've gone from 0 to 150 people in 4 years. That growth is continuing, and therefore we felt very comfortable that iPOS, and clearly Sun, was a product that could grow with us. And enhancements that have been discussed today will be very relevant to us in terms of contracts and record keeping and control as the business grows further and further into overseas territories, and also within London itself. So why iPOS? I mean, a relatively simple question to answer in that it was the only one we were familiar with that could integrate with Sun so simply and so easily for us. And again, because I was keen to ensure that we had an implementation that was rather aggressive in terms of its timetable, we felt that we could trust Sapphire and trust both PA and Sun to ensure that the system worked seamlessly and could integrate across the organisation. So clearly the recommendation that came from Sapphire was not one that we necessarily needed to challenge. Integration to Sun was fundamental, and that was achieved. The audit trail and identification of spend across the group was also there. Our record keeping ability has just improved markedly, and also it's a flexible system. As a financial services organisation, certainly in my experience, that's not one you could easily apply a requisition approval process to, but we've been able to work with Sapphire and PA to ensure that iPOS works for us across the service organisation. So as I say, our total spend is now subject to both requisitioning and order across the organisation, and that's that will continue to grow as we put more approval and authorisation responsibilities across our department heads. So there will be no we will be able to roll that out as we go through, and that's been our experience. So the outcome. I wouldn't be standing here clearly if I wasn't comfortable with the outcome of our implementation, our rollout. The iPOS implementation and the SunSystem implementation that happened before it has happened on time. We had a 6-week program that we set ourselves to implement iPOS across the organisation where there had been little or no control. So it was a massive change in terms of the culture of the organisation in terms of this system implementation. Most importantly as well, in terms of representing it and selling it to my board, it's come in on budget because it was a fairly simplistic implementation, we only have 15 iPOS users at the moment, so we don't have a huge user database, but for us it's coming on time, on budget, and now we're in this phased rollout across the organisation since we adopted it in April 2011. So a short case study, a short representation of our experience of it, and in conclusion, it's enhanced the control, it's enhanced our approval process and authorization, and I now have an audit trail and a reporting functionality that just simply didn't exist. And it's a system that now will grow with us over the coming years. So from our experience, it's been a very successful outcome. That's enough from me, so thank you very much. There's a handout on the table which clearly also sets out a summary of our experience as well. So for those of you who are actual users of iPOS, you probably need a little sell from me, but for those of you who are potential users, I can clearly take questions in the breakout sessions if need be on our experience. So thank you very much for listening to me.